Goals, goals, goals. That is what Barcelona against Real Betis treated us all to. Thanks so much for waiting for this edition of the 5 headlines. I was working MLS Cup at the time, and I did want to fit some Messi and company into the final headline, but with all the goals that were scored in this one and all the action, I think that's going to have to wait to the end or maybe to another day. Real Betis and Barcelona is always chaos, and fans got treated to more chaos, and fortunately chaos that Barcelona also got 3 points of. I don't want that to get lost in any negativity near the end of this 5 headlines. Welcome to episode 557 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I am Dan Hilton, and thank you to everybody that joined in with the watch along that was very much delayed, but we still had it anyway on BigUp.com. So thanks to those who joined me for that one. And I promise I will not be delayed. It will be live and on time on Tuesday against Eintracht Frankfurt. I will also have a preview for that Champions League matchup as I've been doing this season. And if you don't want to miss the preview for that Champions League matchup, then subscribe on YouTube or the podcast apps. Get these shows without the ads over on Patreon to help me out, or you can grab something maybe just in time still for the holidays over on the all-new merch store. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. We've got a lot of goals to go over. This is the 5 headlines from the 5-3 win over Real Betis. Headline 1 is Barça Pounce after dream Betis start. The interesting 11 that Hansi Flick threw out there with both Roony Bardghji, who hadn't really played in a month and is now getting a start, alongside Lamine Yamal, that was the interesting thing to note at kickoff. But what was more interesting to me was that Barcelona, and this is the bad kind of interesting, were down 1-0 early in a match again this season. It came in the 6th minute for Real Betis. Antony with the goal, down Koundé's side when Abde, remember him? He puts it into the box. Antony pops up onside for the first goal of the game. And very quickly, at home, Real Betis lead Barcelona 1-0. Also early in this match, I want to make a note of it just in case things are worse, but I haven't seen any other news other than it was a precautionary thing for Balde. He picked up a knock early in the first half and isn't replaced until halftime by Christensen. Feels precautionary to me. I just want to make a note of it here. So 2 pieces of bad news followed by a piece of good news. By that time in the game, Barcelona had begun to start to string passes together, and they get their first goal in the 11th minute, the first for Ferran Torres. And it's a really nice team goal, too. It's Lamine Yamal to Roony Bardghji to Koundé, in for the cross for Ferran Torres, and it's all one-touch stuff. That's what you want to see from Barcelona. This is a clinical finish from Ferran Torres as well at the near post. Yeah, maybe he got a little lucky on it too, but Baez rightly yelled at his defense. They've got to do better there, but Barcelona and their passing were able to break through, and it's 1-1. Headline 2 is Ferran Torres on the hunt. Sharks do a lot of different things, right? They don't really pounce. They do these things. It's called investigations or test bites, but that really wasn't what this was either. This is actually Ferran Torres as the shark, maybe spilling a little bit of green blood in the water and jumping on it, because 2 minutes later, he puts the ball into the net again. Roony getting down the right, and this is a lot about Roony Bardghji here on the assist. Makes a nice move, beats his man off the dribble, and Roony Bardghji, it's really smooth on these dribble moves. You don't really notice that he's making a move, and not a lot of dancing, but he's composed, decides where he's going to go, and he gets by the man. The cross in is picture perfect to Ferran Torres, and the sidewinder effort from Torres is in the back of the net. It's a super quick brace, and it's 2-1 Barca. Just around 12 minutes later, more good build-up from Barcelona. Rashford gets in behind the space in the half spaces and up over the top of that Real Betis backline. It was available all game long. It happens here. And the cross in for Roony Bardghji. He tries the bicycle kick, or at least 3/4 of a bicycle kick. It doesn't get off. At that point, you're thinking, man, I really would love to see this kid get a goal. Headline 3 is Roony Bardghji arrives. Thankfully for Kool-Aid, she didn't have to wait too long after the bicycle kick, because in the 31st minute, Roony Bardghji opens his Barcelona account. It's a good one to remember for him, too. There is no pressure on Pedri on his spin move in the build-up. Didn't Atletico Madrid teach any of these teams anything? You've got to put a little bit of pressure on Pedri. Instead, Roony receives on his left with a soft touch, takes it to his right, and finishes well at the near post. It's 3-1 Barcelona at that point, and to see Roony Bardghji playing with this confidence is great to see. Hansi Flick, I also thought, endowed him with a bit of confidence to even start this game by giving him, instead of Rashford, the opportunity to take those set pieces. Now, of course, it does make a little more sense with Lamine Yamal and Roony Bardghji and their lack of height on set pieces to put Rashford closer into the box, but still, it's about a confidence for Roony Bardghji to take those set pieces. And the other big wrinkle here was that Roony Bardghji was playing, and for the first time in a start playing off of Lamine Yamal because Lamine Yamal was playing as the 10. And this is a tactical thing that I think we're going to talk a little bit more about, maybe not against Eintracht Frankfurt, but a big idea that is going to carry us through beyond this 5 headlines. Lamine Yamal as the 10, and yes, he was in a 10. To his credit, defensively, and Hansi Flick said this post-game, that he did well enough defensively to make me feel like, at times, it was a 4-3-3. But in truth, we know that it was Lamine Yamal at the 10, and it was Pedri and Eric Garcia in the double pivot that Hansi Flick has been using in that 4-2-3-1 this season. My concern in those first 10 minutes or so was just how much space that Pedri was going to have to cover. And I also thought with the lack of, we'll say, midfield that existed for Barcelona, which oddly enough was kind of mirroring Real Betis. It's not like Barcelona lost the midfield battle at all today. They won that battle, in fact. But my concern was Eric Garcia and Pedri were going to have to stay close, but they were also going to have to defend a lot of space with Lamine Yamal and Roony Bardghji switching places there on the right side. If one of them missed even a simple defensive assignment on a counterattack, well, then Barcelona are going to be in a lot of trouble numerically. But that didn't really happen, at least in the first half. Now, everybody did, as Hansi Flick admitted, get fatigued for the second, but we can worry about that later. While this game was still in the balance, everybody on Barcelona defended together as a unit, and things in that first half looked really good. As I said, Roony Bardghji allowed Lamine Yamal to be a threat both in the middle and then fading out to the wing, whether he was underneath Roony Bardghji, whether Bardghji was the one who was coming inside and Koundé would overlap. I mean, there were times when Lamine Yamal was the deepest of the 3 of the players I just named. This was really good fluidity, and Real Betis weren't sure who to mark and who to continue to work with. We know that Barcelona can sometimes struggle against the man marking, but with the kind of fluidity they had, especially with Ferran Torres starting in the middle instead of Lewandowski, Real Betis were out of their depth in terms of their man marking, which under Pellegrini is fine, but not good enough for this. And one more point on Roony Bardghji, it's crazy to think that he was completely out of the lineup, was not playing, was not getting off the bench, and now he's got this big performance that could carry and propel him to getting even more minutes. He hadn't played more than 15 minutes since Girona on October the 18th and hadn't featured since 7 minutes against Club Brugge on November the 5th. That's over a month since he saw the field. At least he passed the test that he can play alongside Lamine Yamal. As I said, that is the most important thing, and that proved to be a weapon today for Barcelona. Headline 4 is El Tiburón gets 3 and Barça gets 5. The 4-1 comes from Barcelona through Ferran Torres' hat trick. The turnover picked up by Pedri. This is a mistake from Real Betis. Ferran Torres with an ambitious shot and gets the help from the deflection by former Barca man Marc Bartra, who had quite a stinker of a match, one of the worst I've seen him against Barcelona. Valles fairly frustrated here. Betis' back line were both bad and unlucky on the day, but that allowed Ferran Torres, as I said, the Shark, to feast and get his hat trick, which I still think was a well-deserved hat trick. And a credit to Ferran Torres today with his movement and ambition. He wound up making his own luck, which is what you want to see from him. He did almost get a 4th as well right after that, as Betis started to open up with even more space, trying to put some numbers forward, not really working out for them. Come the second half, Barcelona did not want to get anybody hurt in anticipation of Eintracht Frankfurt on Tuesday, and you kind of felt that. That said, there was still so much space, as I think both teams, and Hansi Flick, as I said, Pellegrini, same thing, admitted, both teams fatigued quite a bit. If you're going to press like that, and neither press really did a ton of damage, Barca's press was better than Real Betis' almost non-existent press, and that's what created so much space there in the second half, as Barca also slowed. 55th minute, here comes the 5th for Barca. Was this a penalty on Marc Bartra? It hit the leg first, arm in an unnatural position, but how is he supposed to go down without his arms like that? I don't know. I think it's a bit unfair by the ref. But anyway, 59th minute, no Lewandowski to potentially miss it, so Lamine Yamal scoots it into the corner for the PK. Valles goes the wrong way, and you've got your 5 to Real Betis' 1. 63rd minute, Marc Bernal and De Jong come on for Gerard Martin and Pedri. That moves Eric Garcia back to left back. And it should be noted here, as versatile and wonderful as a compliment I'd like to give Eric Garcia, I both wrote a piece for The Hooligan as well as giving both Eric Garcia and Gerard Martin their flowers in the last match. So today is about Marc Bernal because I thought this was his best cameo since the season began, since he's been back. I was really happy with the way that he dribbled into space. We just haven't seen this yet, and he did it in different parts of the field. He did it apparently stuck on the sideline. He did it in the center of the park, dribbling into space as well as making the quick first touch decision that you need to make. He kept his positioning close to De Jong's, and I was really happy with what he showed. I know the game was pretty wild, and you could look at other moments with his positioning, but I thought he gave a performance that showed that he's a lot more to give if he can build that confidence in both his game and his body. And then headline 5, subs and still too much chaos. 66th minute, Lamine Yamal has Barcelona on a 3-on-1. Roony Bardghji tries to flick it over the keeper, but it's cleared by a Real Betis defender. And at that point, while you thought that Barcelona didn't need a 6, well, maybe they might have. 68th minute, Rooney's day is done. On comes Fermin, and with Fermin returning to Barcelona, now Olmo now going out with a shoulder injury, those two just trading places. And then the 75th minute, Torres was again close to a 4th, but couldn't stretch far enough for the Lamine Yamal cross. At that point, you felt like Barcelona did not need a 6th goal. As I said, who knows? Because Pablo Garcia Hernandez called offside on a goal late that could have been another consolation. Cucho was offside in the buildup. 80th minute, Jofre Torrens gets to close out the game for Eric Garcia, who just got a contract extension until 2031. So it seems like Barcelona agrees with me that he's a valuable player for now and as just a 24-year-old man into the future as well. 85th minute here, the first of the 2 end-of-game goals by Real Betis comes from a corner. Cubarsí asleep at the back post. Diego Llorente scores it. It's flicked on by Abde, out-jumping Torres in the middle. The other way, Rashford in a 1v1 with the keeper. Too much time for him. He goes wide with it. Maybe too many thoughts in that head. He's gotten a little cold here. I'm not concerned. Maybe a little bit of code yellow, not code orange or code red just yet on the goal scoring of Marcus Rashford. But he also was injured, so hopefully he can regain his form soon. Then the last goal for Real Betis scored in the 90th minute. Abde wins a PK off of Koundé. Just poor defending on what was a pretty good day from Koundé overall against Abde. Easy call for the referee too. Koundé goes down early, got a slight touch of the ball, but doesn't matter. It's a clear-cut penalty with the takedown, and Cucho scores Betis' 3rd goal of the game. Late game management and fatigue in the second half might have been a concern to me, but we also know that when game states are pretty much over, Real Betis were fighting for pride, and Barcelona were kind of just fighting not to get injured, so I'm not too worried about it. They'll look at the tape. It is what it is. The mistakes were pretty egregious there by Cubarsí at the back post and by Koundé on the PK, so we don't worry about that. Just don't carry that into Eintracht Frankfurt on Tuesday, which, by the way, I will again remind you that I will have the watch along on BigUp for that one against Eintracht Frankfurt. We've had a ton of fun, especially on the Champions League weekdays. That's where we've had our biggest crowd, so please join me for that one. And unfortunately, yes, MLS Cup, I had a keen eye. I was working the match, and while Messi and Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba, Luis Suarez, my head is full of thoughts. I unfortunately don't have time to really get into it, so that might be another little thing that we've got to discuss in the coming few days when I get a moment here. I think there's just too much to go over with their legacies, with Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba riding off into the sunset with a championship. It's not a Champions League trophy, but it is an MLS Cup. So that'll probably be in the coming few days, I guess. Again, with Eintracht Frankfurt, there's so much going on. So please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check me out on Patreon, the merch store, podcast apps, so you don't miss anything coming out in the next few days. And as always, until next time, Forza Barça.